And there's been great excitement, a lot of investment in ensuring or trying to get our athletes atop the podium or onto the podium or personal bests. And this has really been hailed as an investment in our athletes. And that's terrific. But what happens after the games? And are all sports being treated equitably? Joining us for a discussion, well, is a name and a voice a lot of people here in the Capital Region are going to be familiar with. Bruce Deacon, an Olympian, now BC Athlete Voice Board Chair. Bruce, great to have you on the program. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks, Murray. It's a delight to be here with you, too.
I have to get your take on what the atmosphere is now that we're only 4 weeks away from Vancouver 2010. What's your sense of how Canada and its preparations have been?
Well, it's really exciting. I mean, Canada has the dubious honor or dishonor of hosting 2 games and never winning a gold medal. And we're poised to really make this a different story this time around. We've got a lot of athletes that could win gold, and we're poised to actually own the podium, so to speak. We're poised to do better than we've ever done before at Olympic Games. So it's really exciting. I'm over here in Vancouver, and you know, you can see the banners going up, and you can see people getting quite excited about the whole thing.
As someone who's competed for Canada, worn that flag, and proudly, we very well know that. Talk about the difference you now see in terms of support and investment in athletes that maybe were a bit different from when you were running.
Well, things have changed dramatically. I mean, there's much more support from government, and I think it's just it's fantastic. I mean, as an Olympian, I can tell you that having government behind you and supporting you and funding the programs that you participate in is fantastic. I mean, it's necessary. If you really want to be competitive, you have to have those support measures. And so now more than ever before, we have support through CSC Pacific. We have support through the provincial government. We have the support from many different sponsors through the COC and the CPC. And it's much better than it was when I was competing.
And what was it like when you were competing? And you were competing in some pretty prestigious Olympic Games.
Yeah. A lot of it was. I mean, we had federal karting money, we had provincial karting money, or athlete assistance money, and that was good. And it kept getting more during the time that I was competing. The big jump happened after I retired. And it was more difficult. You had to be a little bit more creative and to get sponsors, to get funding, to do things, and you had to rely on your community a lot. And I think athletes still do. They rely on their communities, but there's a lot more structures that are in place to add to that.
And what sort of structures do we see? Is it the funding? Is it the infrastructure? Is it the training, the coaching, the development?
Murray, it's all of those, really. I mean, the provincial government has put a lot of money here in BC into sport, and this makes a huge difference for athletes. It enables more athletes to get sports science so that they can reach a higher level of performance and stay injury-free. It enables kids to be introduced to sport and to dream of going from playground to podium. It provides the provincial sport organizations with an opportunity to provide programs both for high-performance athletes and for emerging athletes. The stuff that's out there right now is fantastic for athletes through the CSC Pacific, through many different groups. We're really taking care of our athletes much, much better. And the facilities that are there also. I mean, the province has invested an awful lot of money into facilities. They put $655 million in the last few years into building top-class, world-class facilities in the province, everywhere from Victoria all the way up to Prince George. And so it's much better now, and we're into a place where we're starting to see the results of it. I mean, we had BC athletes won 40% of the medals, or 38% of the medals at Beijing, and we had 40% of the team, and that's just for the Olympic Games, and we weren't that far behind for the Paralympic Games. And last year we had one of our best years ever at the Canada Games. We're performing. Our system is outperforming a lot of the other provinces, and some of the provinces that are bigger than us, such as Quebec. But
it's almost a surprise given our population base.
Well, that's it. Like we have 13% of Canada's population, and yet we put 40% onto an Olympic team. We're doing really well, and this speaks well of the good work that is being done by all the different groups within the sports system. I mean, I'm just looking at the numbers here for the Paralympic Games. I mean, we had 29% almost a third of the Paralympic team in 2008, and yet we only have 13% of the population. So it shows that we're doing the right thing, and a lot of that comes back to, we've been funded at a level that has enabled us to do good work and enabled us to attract the experts, the coaches, the sports scientists to put on the programs that we really need to perform well.
Now, looking long-term beyond 2010, what's going to happen? Are we positioned to have that same level of support and funding for, say, London in 2012 and Sochi in 2014?
Well, we hope so, and I think that's why the BC Athlete Voice has launched this Thumbs Up for Funding Sport program, an initiative. I think that really what we're a little bit, we're responding to a concern that is out there in the sport community, and the concern is that if we were to look at the service plan, it shows that there's a fairly significant drop in funding for next fiscal, after the Games. And we're concerned that what's going to happen with the Olympic Games is what happened to athletes such as myself. I mean, I grew up in Ottawa, and what got me into running, what got me excited about sport was the 1976 Olympic Games. And seeing all those Canadian athletes and international athletes competing, I wanted to do sport. I wanted to find a sport I could do well at. And I was quite fortunate because at the time, the sports system in Ontario was very strong. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that the sports system in BC is funded well so that the athletes, the kids, the children of 2010 that get turned on to sport by watching the Olympics and the Paralympic Games will have a strong sports system to go into, and that there'll be strong programs and great opportunities so that they can see their dreams of mounting a podium and winning a gold medal at the Olympic or Paralympic Games come true. And so that's why we've got this initiative that's launched, is to thank government, to say thank you for what you've invested in the school, invested in the sports system. We really appreciate that. Please reconsider your decision not to continue this investment at the same level after the Games.
You talk about your inspiration from the Montreal Games. What did it take for you to get to the Olympic level?
I think a lot of it was persistence. I mean, I look at a lot of the athletes I competed against in high school, and in all honesty, I think they were more talented than I was, but I had the staying power, and I had the support around me that I could continue the sport and the passion to continue the sport, even when I went through a few years there where I just didn't seem to be improving and things didn't seem to be going well. And I think that's what enabled me to go from being a pretty good high school runner to being on the Olympic team.
A lot of athletes share similar stories that what led them to the Olympic level was their own perseverance. And sadly, Bruce, we keep hearing tale of these athletes that are succeeding in spite of what Canada has historically offered them in terms of support. And that's disappointing. You talk about a dissuasion from pursuing high levels of excellence athletically. I mean, that's a real drag.
Well, it is. And this is where it is a drag, but what is exciting is that we seem to have turned a corner. I mean, initiatives like Own the Podium, where provinces and federal governments have put money into, and the COC and the CPC have put money into investing in high-performance athletes so that they have the support that they need to be competitive. The whole attitude, I think, has changed an awful lot, and people are now seeing that Canadians can be successful. They can win medals. It's not just a case of, isn't it great you're there, but they can actually be competitive at that level because they have the support that they mightn't have had even a decade ago.